Stop applauding now, folks. Hey, folks, you're back with i12 GIA, Intelligence Group Analysts, Real Talk with Real People on the FFN network for another evening. It's June 19th at 8 p.m. And tonight we're going to be covering C-40 cities and the New World Order and how that relates to 15-minute cities. It's something that's been a lot of that's been in the news lately, and we have some pretty good information on it. So, Rennie, why don't you go ahead and fire us off there, brother?
So I was turned on to the C-40 Cities initiative by my buddy Jerry Uber. He's part of a text group. Anyway, C-40 Cities, they passed themselves off as a climate leadership group, and they're commonly known as C-40 Cities. And what it is a network of the largest cities allegedly committed to addressing climate change. The cities in the United States that are into this, they're all run by Democrat mayors, as a matter of fact. One of them is the city of Boston, Mayor Michelle WOLD. Anyway, they pass themselves off as addressing climate change and also sustainability. They actually founded in 2005, and Bill Clinton was heavily involved in their founding and their organizing. C-40 Cities brings together mayors, again, of more than 90 cities worldwide to collaborate on tackling, allegedly, the challenges of climate change and creating more sustainability for future urban populations. But what they're really doing is, it really has nothing to do with climate change and everything to do with the New World Order. And for those of you that don't know what the New World Order is, it's a concept or a term used to describe hypothetical future global political and social systems in which traditional power structures and dynamics are reorganized to address pressing global challenges, which, as we all know, climate change, which is a hoax, but that's their platform.
What was it the mayor of New York said today? Or the governor of New York said something about this is the hottest summer record on history they've ever experienced or something. It's like 90 degrees. But it seems like it's just hot.
Yeah, well,
it's not.
People seem to forget every 10,000 years the climate changes. It goes from hot to cold.
Yeah.
It's something nice about it's one of those world phenomena that they're never going to understand.
Yeah, I don't get it. Hey, Nomad, you got anything you want to weigh in there on the C-20 or C-40 cities?
Yeah, I'm absolutely backing up my brother Rene on what he's saying in relation to the concept and the sort of false flag thing of being climate change driven and orientated. But there's been lots of stuff that has evolved or morphed into beyond the original plans. There's a number of different principles behind these cities, but if you see the location where these places are, just in the US, yes, Democrat run, but internationally, a lot of those cities are cities where the population and the infrastructure is suitable for more segregation in times of, for instance, a pandemic. COVID-19 showed some of it, and also how they're easier to, from a logistical and from a tactical point of view, some of the access to these cities, it's easy to seal them off in the event of something nasty happening.
That's an excellent point. Isn't that something China did with great regularity during COVID?
Yes, sir.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and run up this first video that we have here, and that'll kind of lead us down this path. Okay, let's do this is the, there we go. Okay.
With concerted action and with clarity of purpose, there is no limit to what we can do. Too many national governments are still dragging their feet, refusing to commit to the policies, to the regulation.
What strategy do you have to make sure that the population gets on board with the green transition?
The small minority who denied COVID exists, who are conspiracy theorists, who are climate change deniers, they're a waste of time. They're never going to be persuaded.
It's not an interview. What are the consequences going to be? Katie Davis-Court reporting for Rebel News. It is day 2 of the C-40 World Mayor Summit here in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and mayors from across the globe have officially arrived. Now, if you have not been following our reporting since we got on the ground here in Argentina, mayors from across the globe have entered into a pact called the C-40 cities, where they plan to implement the same climate policies to drastically reduce carbon emissions in the future. Now, they cannot achieve their goals without a significant power grab on the people, and in doing so, they want to reduce your ability to purchase clothing, have no meat, no dairy. That is what the future of the world looks like in these cities. So if you disagree and would like to fight back, go to c40summit.com, where you can sign the petition and also donate to Rebel News and help us offset our travel costs so we can continue coming to events like this across the world and bringing the other side of the story to you guys, which is crucial considering that this is the biggest global power grab in recent history. Like I said, they cannot continue their agenda without a significant power grab. So today we attended a press conference featuring mayors from the United States, the United Kingdom, South Africa, and the Philippines. And we asked them questions about how they plan to control the population into getting on board with their transition into a green economy or a one world order.
Now, it is quite apparent after watching the citizenry from across the world respond to the COVID lockdowns that not everyone will be on board with the policies set forth by the C-40 cities. So what strategy do you have to make sure that the population gets on board with the green transition?
When you want to introduce a climate action plan, you need resources, but especially from developing countries, we don't have the necessary finance available. But like we said, there are other innovative strategies that you can follow. For example, as mayor of the city of Chuane, once a month, I've got a campaign which we branded with a fancy name called Chualopele, and we encourage communities all across Chuane to get involved in taking care of their environment.
Well, in our case, in Quezon City, we have a very participatory kind of government. So just 2 weeks ago, in fact, we sponsored a business summit, which is one of many that we always have, wherein we inform the business sector about latest developments and plans of the city. And this particular summit was directed at the climate emergency, because we had declared a climate emergency way back in 2019, which then enabled me as the mayor to start mobilizing resources, not just from the city government, the national government, but also from the business sector.
Okay, I'll deal with that question. Can I deal with Katie's question as well in relation to the links with COVID and climate change? Look, I think there are basically 3 groups of people, and it's linked with COVID. There were those who were COVID deniers, conspiracy theorists, and a lot of them are climate change deniers. You've got a lot of people who understood what's happening with COVID, understand what's happening with climate change, took up the vaccines, want to tackle climate change. And there's a lot of people in the middle who aren't sure, and so they need persuading. And what we have to do as politicians is to almost be like teachers, work with the experts to explain, just like we did with the pandemic, which led to many lives being saved, including in Argentina with the great rollout of the vaccines and in Buenos Aires, explain climate change. So in the UK, the 12 hottest periods in the history since records began have been since 2013. How do you explain 40 degrees Celsius in London, when normally, if we're lucky, we get 24 degrees? How do you explain China this year having the most extreme heat waves since records began? Meloretta was telling me some of the temperatures you had here in the recent past. How do you explain that? How do you explain the fires we've seen across Western Europe and Australia and the USA? How do you explain the flooding we have seen? What's your response to 99% of the scientists who explain the links between fossil fuels, carbon emissions, and climate change? And frankly speaking, the small minority who denied COVID exists, who are conspiracy theorists, who are climate change deniers, they're a waste of time. They're never going to be persuaded. But the middle group may listen to them and believe they're nonsense. So we as politicians have got to work with the experts to explain what is happening and use the opportunity created by the crisis to give hope and provide the solutions we're providing. It's really important we do that. I think lazy politicians play on people's fears and win elections. Good politicians address people's fears and find solutions, and we've got to be those good politicians addressing people's fears.
What consequences are there going to be for people that don't abide by the climate green transition?
It's not an interview.
What are the consequences going to be? As you can see, my coworker Lincoln J and I were immediately blocked by security, but this just goes to show that we are the only ones here challenging these politicians and providing the other side of the story. This global takeover is coming to you.
What an arrogant, insufferable asshat that guy is. Holy shit. Do all you guys go to a politician when you want to learn something because they're your teachers? Fuck him. Jesus.
Hey, let me ask, does anybody know, like, to get to their summits and their conferences and to get back home and to do, what do they paddle on the raft? They do the backstroke or what? Do you know how they get around?
Who?
These people, these idiots.
Oh, yeah, I know exactly how they get around. Like
How they get around?
Gulfstream G5s, whatever other.
Are they electric? Are they
powered
Or are they powered by fossil fuel?
No, big jet engines.
Oh, okay.
Big old jet airliners, yeah.
So
exactly.
they're hypocrites.
You think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, man, I cannot believe some of the shit that guy was in. And yes, private jets, absolutely bullshit. I like that. I'll go ahead and put the little asterisk behind the shit part to that for you. And a thumbs up. This is all from Ann. Thank you, Ann. We're so glad you joined us. You come in with us every show, and we have always have good stuff to say. And yeah, first time hearing about this, which is why we're doing what we do here at i12 GIA. A lot of this information doesn't get out. It gets lost in the shuffle. So we take it upon ourselves to make sure you folks have this information.
Same group of people that want to euthanize our cows and have us eat plant-based beef instead of real meat.
Well, yeah, and it's it all but it has nothing to do with climate change or COVID or the energy.
Climate change is like COVID. It was all made up. All made up.
Exactly. It's all about control.
Right.
That's the bottom line and the purpose, because they think we're too stupid to take care of ourselves.
See, the C-40 cities, they operate through a series of working groups and initiatives that focus on key areas such like as energy, transportation, waste management, urban planning. Now, transportation is hypocritical because, they're flying around in planes. They're burning jet fuel. So it's hypocritical. And we should realize it for what it is. The initiatives aim to promote sustainable practices. Well, that's a bunch of BS. Reduce carbon footprints. Well, if they want to reduce their carbon footprints, I guess they'd be doing a backstroke or taking a raft or wherever they were going instead of flying around. And to create a greener, more livable cities for residents by sharing best practice and data and resources. Cities in the C-40 network can learn from each other and collaborate on initiative solutions to common challenges, which is BS, but points right back to the New World Order.
They make up a bunch of shit to justify their existence. Go ahead, Nomad, jump in, buddy.
Yeah, buddy. It's interesting because when the C-40 concept was brought about by that crackpot, Ken Livingstone, was the mayor of London. He was a real lefty, and a lefty by UK politics is a bit different from a lefty that we have here. But he was a big fan of George Orwell, and so he was very Orwellian in how he looked at it. And he mobilized the Labour Party, which was the equivalent of the Democrats in a way. For the Tories, Conservatives would be the Republicans in the UK, just by way of explanation. But what I'm coming to is that his influence on being a fan of George Orwell in 1984 had a lot to do with him pushing this thing at the very start. And he called a conference and got this thing going. The second thing is that the other part of C-40 that may not be known is that the United Nations has its version of the C-40, and it's called the Single Integrated Operational Plan, or SIOP. Now, military-wise, that's generally deemed to be post-nuclear conflict, how we rebuild, how we consolidate, how we defend, and whatever. And ironically, strangely or whatever, some of these cities that are now on the C-40 list are cities that can sustain a better chance of survival in a limited nuclear exchange. And so it's interesting that there's been a sort of an overlap between what the original plan was on the C-40 thing, first brought about by Ken Livingstone, but then how the military and tactical aspect to some of this in the locations. There's some countries that are not included and will never be included. You've got to be a prosperous first world city to be included in this, which means that if you're poor and underdeveloped, you ain't got a snowflake's chance in hell in being a C-40 city. Most of Africa would not be included. So strangely how they have already dissected where they have decided where these cities are going to be located, not in the poorer regions. So all the philanthropy behind global warming and this global village BS, they really don't care. If you're poor, that's it, because in reality, no money, no options.
Okay. Well, yeah,
So,
exactly. Go ahead.
Well, look, I got a question. So the C-40 cities, they were supposed to peak their greenhouse gas emissions by 2020 and then start reducing them from there. Now, let's take out of the equation China, because they're building coal plants still. Does anybody know if they met their objectives when it comes to that?
No, hell no. They're made up objectives. No, man, go ahead.
I think they basically ignored them because they're not relevant to them. Listen, the majority of the Chinese population are not warmongers. The majority of the Chinese population is about making money and being prosperous. They don't look at a global stage. They have the Great Wall of China was to keep not just foreigners out, but keep what they have inside. You mentioned something very interesting, Rene, about the gases, the ozone emissions. Funny enough, one of the SIOP, one of the single integrated operational plans for military, both in US and globally, is that for you to be able to control the radiation, you must be able to control the ozone layers, the O3 layers in the city that's being hit. So there isn't a connection, physical, tangible, and tactical when it comes to the C-40 thing. If you can control the emissions, you can control the density and viscosity of this radiation falling upon the population.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Yeah,
exactly. Okay, moving right along. Since we had to listen to that obnoxious UK twat waffle, I would like, and you guys kind of glossed right over consequences. Did you hear what he said about there must be consequences for people that don't toe the line, right? All right, so I'm going to refer that obnoxious twat waffle to that's my word for the day, by the way, twat waffle, to my t-shirt here in America. We like our coffee black and our tea in the harbor. So do not forget that, you piece of shit. All right, moving right along. Our next video is gonna cover the funding stream for this band of merry fucking idiots. Go ahead.
The rise of globalism means that it's getting harder to hold the power to account. And that's not just about scrutiny, it's about the basic aspects of democracy. Before, we used to be able to hire and fire people in charge by electing them and getting rid of them at the next election. But now there are two problems. One is about the international institutions and another is about corporations. Corporatism is gaining too much power, going hand in hand with big government, and that means that decisions are being made at different places without us having any power. We used to complain about big government. We used to complain about the European Union as a big institution. But now we also have corporations and other institutions. In this video, we're going to talk about C-40 cities, the climate leadership group. We have talked about C-40 cities a lot on this channel. And some of you guys have been commenting, asking for me to go through more of the background and the people in charge, the people behind it. So the C-40 cities is essentially a a forum that was and a lobby group that was formed to get a huge number of cities and mayors across the world to sign up to a collectivized idea to create a sustainable environment. That sounds lovely, isn't it? Yeah. But that means they're going to come up with centralized policy that are mostly about blanket policies, and there is always a vested interest involved without any scrutiny, without asking us, the plebs, ordinary commoners, to have a say. This is the issue. So in this video, we're going to talk about the funders and the partners of C-40, the people who are giving money and the people who are around the table, who actually have a say. It's not me and you, it's these guys. These people provide critical support and a strategic insight to help advance the mission and deliver on pragmatic programs. But actually, it's not pragmatic goals. Anything they're doing is the opposite of being pragmatic. It's all about the program. But let's talk about these people. So when it comes to the strategic partner funders, you got Bloomberg, but not just Bloomberg, the Bloomberg Philanthropies. Ooh, that sounds lovely. Working at over 120 countries around the world to ensure better, longer lives for greater number of people. That sounds lovely, isn't it? Yeah. Children's Investment Fund Foundation, and of course all the other relevant organizations. That sounds so lovely because they have a lot of virtue, and they do like to signal that they have the virtue. So the problem with this is that in the past, charity work, philanthropy used to be more private and more behind the scenes. It wasn't really that in your face. And even when you were doing philanthropy or charity work, you didn't really demand access to the top. You didn't do it for having privilege. You didn't do it to get close to presidents and prime ministers and elected governments. This is the issue that we now have. And look at the major funders. So this is the other problem, by the way, because this is supposed to be an independent body, but it's been funded by the British government as well as all the others, including the German government and the Federal Ministry for the Environment, Nature, Conservation and the Nuclear Safety, and many others, including Denmark, the Ministry for Foreign Office in Denmark. Now, in this country, we have the Foreign Office basically funding partly. They are a major funder of C-40 cities. I don't understand this, because why can't we have any say? Why can't we know about it? Unless you have heard about C-40 cities and you go on their website, like what I did, people on the streets walking around don't know that when they pay taxes at the end of the year, at the end of each month, if they are an employee, then some of the money will go to the NHS to get wasted. Some of the money goes to the Home Office to protect our borders. That gets wasted. And a lot of money goes to get wasted. But then some of it goes to dictatorships. We know that. Foreign aid. And some of it is actually going towards funding either charity organizations or campaign groups that are fighting against our own government and our own country, and some who are globalist entities who are making decisions without asking our consent. So let's have a look at some of the other groups involved. The Clean Air Fund, that's also another philanthropic initiative with a mission to tackle air pollution. That sounds lovely. But why do you need big money and big influence around it? Climate Works Foundation is another one, Global Environmental Facility is another one, and many others. But I want to focus on these guys, especially IKEA and L'Oreal, because as private corporations who have been selling themselves to us as customers, that they are supposed to be businesses who are simply there to make profit and provide a product or service, and that was fine. That was free market capitalism. Then the rise of corporatism happened, and then the rise of globalization. So you got basically a corporate statists in the name of globalization, internationalism, cooperating with each other around the world. So we got basically international businesses, multinational businesses like IKEA or L'Oreal, with headquarters in New York or London or Paris or wherever they are. But they are acting, they have so much influence over policy ideas, they might not be able to sit around the table like in Parliament and make mandatory regulations, but they will feed in their ideas to politicians, and those politicians will make those policies. And who has a say? Not us. I thought they were just businesses where we would just go as customers to buy products from. No, apparently not. They are activists. Well, speaking of activists, let's talk about the Open Society Foundations. Oh dear. Yes, Open Society Foundations for the past few years, for decades, have been very proactive when it comes to being interventionists around the world in the name of being humanitarian, right? Now, in the name of being humanitarian, the Open Society have been going around to dictatorships, to different continents, different countries, and without being welcomed, by the way, and they are influencing local policies and governance of these countries, sort of like what Tony Blair does with his institution. And again, if I were one of those countries, but there is a dictatorship or a democracy, I will still be offended. Who is George Soros or Tony Blair to go to these countries and tell them what to do? And they are also doing it to us. I don't understand. We didn't elect any of you. So what is the point of electing a prime minister if you guys are going to feed them information and ideas? What is the point of democracy? So, look at this. This is the board of directors. Ooh. So we've got the chair of C-40 Cities, which is Saad IQ Khan, the mayor of London. Then you got a couple of very interesting characters here. Now, feel free to pause the video, then go and Google each one of them. But because by doing basic research, you could find some very interesting stories about their backgrounds. For example, the Governor Robert Mumbai. It's quite fascinating because this guy had some controversies in the past. He was he was being investigated for fraud a couple of times and essentially misleading the authorities. But he's still governor. That's just how it works. It doesn't really matter. You still have power. But it's not just him. Look at the Mayor Kate Gallagher from Phoenix in the United States. Oh my God. This human was absolutely fascinating over the last few years because there's been a number of protests outside her office, especially over the last couple of years, because she's been completely ignoring any of the concerns. But that's just normal, right? That's what politicians do. They ignore people. But controversies included her treatment of homeless people and the housing crises in Phoenix, and she's been completely ignoring any of the policy ideas, and her office completely shut down everything, and people have been protesting, and she just doesn't care because she's already in power. She's more busy and distracted with going to the C-40 meetings to have meetings with Sadiq Khan and many others than actually looking after her own city in Phoenix. No. That's not what they're concerned about. Now, part of the other board of directors, we've got Michael Bloomberg, another beauty, who is also a massive globalist. And you've got Justin Johnson, the climate director at the Children's Investment Fund Foundation. Why does the Children's Investment Fund Foundation have a climate director? I mean, what is going on in this world? I have a feeling you have to have certain divisions in every company, every business, even if it's a small company. So I think the i12 TV channel is going to be creating a climate division as well as a diversity division. I don't think this channel is diverse enough. I don't think we have enough ginger people on this channel. It's just full of me. We need more diversity on 2C TV, guys. So if any of you wants to create a division and be part of the head of diversity, that would be great. Now, the rest of the people on this board of directors, they're just absolutely fascinating humans. But I want to focus on one more person on this. Shirley Rodriguez, the Deputy Mayor for Environment and Energy in Greater London. Yes, Shirley Rodriguez is a Saad IQ's deputy who went around and intimidated and put pressure on scientists who conducted research on ULEZ, and their research said ULEZ is bad, and Shirley was not too happy, and she basically sent out emails to them saying, can you change the result of your consultations? And the scientists initially were like, surely you don't want us to change our facts. And she said, don't call me Shirley. But she said, but that's your name. Anyway, jokes aside, we're going to keep you guys posted on this nonsense that is spreading around our country and the Western world like a virus, which is called globalist corporatism. I'm Maya 2C.
Yeah. Huh. All right. My question about all this. Yeah. Why are there? What the fuck is the mayor of Phoenix doing involved in any of this?
Well, yeah. Well, I said, you get Michelle Wu in Boston.
Yeah.
You got the guy from the boob from New York. But here's my thing. If I listen to this guy correctly, It sounds like everything that's going on is going to have impact on a loss of national sovereignty, individual freedoms, cultural diversity, and that could result from a central globalized authority, which I believe he did mention. They argue that attempts to impose a uniform set of rules or norms on a diverse society could lead to conflicts and oppression. Don't we have that already?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. The streamer, Nomad. Where's this guy from?
This guy is this 2C TV guy. He's a good guy. He's nothing wrong with him. His lineage is Iranian, so his people came from Iran after the Shah of Iran was deposed by Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979. So his point of view and perspective and his worldview is influenced heavily by what they call centric or middle of the road UK politics. So he's more of an entertainer than a reporter. So what he says to me is what we already read about. But honestly, I tell you, he's just too damn long-winded in getting to the point. He needs to just focus on what he's doing. But he raises the points. The points are all that the funding is the important thing. Always follow the money. You find out where stuff goes to. He mentioned Clinton. He mentioned Soros. Every one of these people, including Tony Blair, former UK Prime Minister, they've all got foundations similar to what the Clinton Foundation is. Soros, so they all copy a winning formula. It's like McDonald's copying Burger King copying whatever. So it's the same type of setup, but the money is where you'll find it at. It's just that there's very few people representative of this, even within their own dynamic, where they come from poorer third world countries. If you're a poorer third world country, you're not included in the gang and you're not drinking the Kool-Aid.
That's kind of interesting to see South Africa represented in some of this and some of the other African countries, because my interpretation of some of this is that that's part of their justification, though, is that they're saying, these organizations are saying, without saying it, that they're going to redistribute wealth from it's wealthier companies are going to provide education and training and the funds to allow the more poor countries to reach the same level of independence and financial wherewithal is their excuse.
I don't know. If they were sincere and they were going to help them out, they'd be helping them out now. They wouldn't be laying out plans to do it, wouldn't you think?
Well, yeah, exactly. But again, back what we talked about earlier, though, is that this all just all an excuse for power. It's a power grab. But they have to justify their existence in some way. They just can't say, we're going to go and take all these countries by the throat and shake them until they do what we tell them to do. They're going to have to come up with an excuse and a way to do it. Yeah, Nomad, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, it's interesting. Again, if you look at the geographic location of where these cities are, they're all cities that are basically on the edge. Most of them are on the coastline, are very close to the sea. They're less than 100 kilometers, less than 60 miles from the sea. Cities like Barcelona, South Africa. So you're talking about, if you look at these locations and just pick any 10, 6 or 7 of each of those 10 cities have a situation where there's a lot of wind, a lot of stuff. So they're looking at the chance of radiation passing by is quite good. Ireland was classed as the 3rd safest country in the world to survive a nuclear fallout because of the amount of wind that's there. Other thing interesting about it, Mr. Obama, what a fun individual he is. Do you remember him a few years back during his presidency on a visit to Africa, telling people they didn't need to have air conditioning because it would only affect global warming?
Right.
So that just tells you, right? That just tells you what you're about. If you're elitist and you're in your air-conditioned office or suite or foundation, you don't give a rat's ass about anybody else. And it's about control. It's about control of resources. It's about repopulation. It's about population control. Overpopulation adds to global warming, according to these guys. Interestingly enough, the countries that had a history of population control, like China, it was not from a global warming point of view. It was primarily for limited resources for limited people. And the Chinese have to be given credit to actually being able to manage and basically ignore what's not relevant to them. I think that when something goes wrong, every country's loyalty dissipates quickly, proportional to their own survivability. And, you know, when you have global warming and climate change influencing the fact that military now must have a certain percentage of their vehicles and tactical readiness powered by green power, you know, until they develop a solar-powered aircraft or F-22, this thing is dreamland. Look at what's happened to wokeness, which has also gone parallel with the C-40 agenda. Military around the world now are committed to climate change and conservative. It's not about turning off your light bulb in the barracks. It's about you running biodiesel in your aircraft carrier so you can keep Mother Earth happy while your adversary knocks the crap out of you.
Exactly. Now, all of this stuff plays into the 15-minute cities, which we're going to get into next, where the basic concept is everybody lives within 15 minutes of their employee or their work, their stores, anything that they need to get to buy, and their residence within 15 minutes. So Jordan Peterson has some really interesting thoughts on that whole thing. So that's the next video that's up. And let's see. And Carolyn, thank you. We really try our best to create a vivid experience here at I12 GIA, Real Talk with Real People. I'm glad you're enjoying the show.
Hey, I got an interview tomorrow with the U.S. Marshal's office in Boston. That's an hour and a half commute. I wonder how they're gonna fucking take that.
Yeah, you can't do it. You can't. You're gonna have to move to Boston and stay within 15 minutes.
I'll be driving the hour and a half.
All right, guys. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, we try to be rock stars too, whatever it is that we're doing. Okay. All right, guys. Let's go with Mr. Peterson, see what he has to say.
Looked into the C-40 websites. The C-40 is the consortium of municipalities that have signed on to the 15-minute city plan. And I read in their own documentation, this is relevant to the tri-state city idea, that their goals are to reduce caloric consumption to 2,500 calories a day by force, essentially, within the next 15 years, to ensure that the peasant class, which is everybody but the elitists, can't fly more than one time every 3 years, to not merely shift private car ownership from fossil fuel to electric, which is fundamentally impossible because the grid can't handle it, but to eliminate 90% of private car ownership so that people are forced to take, you know, unbelievably expensive in terms of time utilization and non-existent public transportation systems, and to limit the amount of travel that people can do outside of their neighborhoods. And, you know, and then I watch the legacy media claim that pointing that out is something akin to a right-wing conspiracy, which it most certainly isn't, because you can just find the bloody documentation online. And then I look at places like China, which have taken this to an extreme. 600 million closed-circuit TV cameras in China. 1 for every 1.5 persons watching the Chinese all the time, able to monitor them 100% by face, and also to identify them by gait, and to limit their ability to do absolutely anything, to buy, to sell, to travel, to move, to leave their neighborhood, with this top-down surveillance system that perversely and consciously some of the Chinese engineers have actually named Skynet. And in a conscious attempt to produce a positive version of, you know, the absolutely catastrophic, apocalyptic artificial intelligence that was in the bloody Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And you can't even talk about this stuff without sounding like a raving conspiratorialist, but there it is. Now,
Where'd we go? Okay, we all else to there? Yep, that's it. All right. That's all I had to say about that. Doesn't that make everybody feel all warm and fuzzy?
Oh, yeah. Really?
But the 15-minute cities are the big problem. So again, we're back to power and control and everything else that's going on with that.
Well, he was talking about like electric vehicles. Today in the state of New Hampshire, a third of the power grid went down because everybody was using their air conditioning. So how, in God's name, do you think electric cars are going to work out everywhere?
They probably aren't. One would think. I don't know, guys. What do you want to do with this?
Look what they're doing in Australia. They're banning meat now. You can't buy eggs anymore.
Yeah, They killed off all the chickens because of bird flu.
That stuff is headed here.
Yeah, well, yeah, without a doubt.
That's all part of this whole conglomerate.
Mm-hmm. Nomad?
Yeah, I honestly think it's a complete waste of airtime in a sense. We're giving these guys more than we need to. I tell you, here's the thing. Ironically, there's more discussions about C-40 generates more ozone, depleting methane and other stuff. I think they're adding to global warming by talking about this damn thing. Listen, Americans love their cars. Americans have to use a vehicle to get to work. You have to have a car to operate in America. You have to have a car to operate to get to your work. Your car in America, I didn't fully get the concept until I became an American and lived here properly. And I tell you this, without a vehicle, you're screwed. If you depend on public transport, you're screwed. Your timetable is dictated by somebody else's timetable, which is controlled. All right. Second thing is, no one's ever going to give up the gasoline engine. No one's going to give up the combustion engine. Okay. And it doesn't make any sense from a tactical point of view, military point of view, consumer point of view. It doesn't matter. And it only matters to those that have a vested interest in it. Either they're getting paid to push this agenda, and ironically, some of these people have shares in green energy, green stuff, and green whatever. How much money has been wasted in the US by the Democrats on green energy? And nothing's happened. So it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I honestly think that people will generally ignore it. And that's it. Toyota just came out with a hydrogen engine, another engine that the propulsion system is generated from water. So the days of electric are probably limited in a way because there's more water than some of these things. Here's the last thing I'll say to you. Most of the stuff that we need is in the control of our enemies, right? Yeah. Those that have access to hydrocarbons, minerals, they're raping Africa right now. Every superpower, regardless of their policy in public, is in Africa taking stuff. Why the hell do you think we're looking at the moon? Because what's going to happen is if you can mine in Antarctica, if you can mine in the depths of the ocean, you can probably at this stage now mine something and extract some geology from stuff on the far side of the moon. Every major nuclear power has a space program. So they have a space program, not just to put people and bring stuff down from a defense point of view, but also to bring stuff back from what surrounds us. And I tell you something, what's in the moon is untapped. So we haven't explored our own planet properly, but we have to defend our homeland, and our homeland is going to be defended by gasoline engines or nuclear power, and screw green energy. Because as Rennie said at the start, this is a natural phenomenon. The world has gone through climate change every so many years and so many centuries, and it's a fact of life. It's natural.
Well, yeah, that's just the vehicle to put us all in 15-minute cities and all that. There's a big issue going on right now in Idaho with the potato farmers having all their water shut off by the government. And the conventional wisdom on that now is that the government is doing it because they're promoting cobalt mining. Because what do batteries need? Cobalt. How do you mine cobalt? It's very water intensive. So what grows in Idaho? Potatoes, for the most part.
I got a suggestion for the brothers and sisters from Idaho. We can watch the movie The Martian and take some advice from Matt Damon on how to grow potatoes.
Oh, shit.
All right. Well, you'll never see me put a mashed potato in my mouth again. But speaking of which, we got a few minutes left.
Yeah.
Did anybody else here beside me?
I don't know.
That Biden and Camel Toe are going to be knocked out, and could be possibly Hillary.
Yeah, I heard something about that earlier too.
That was from credible news sources.
It was, yeah, that's very possible. You guys want to see what AOC has to say about any of this?
Nomad's got something he wants to say.
Oh yeah, go ahead, buddy.
Michelle Obama.
Yeah. No, she did. She refused to get on the call. She said no.
Well, I tell you now, right? People protest. It's like somebody being at a wedding. Come on, buddy, sing us a song. No, I'm a lousy singer. 15 minutes later, you can't get the guy off the damn stage because he's singing all night. Right?
Listen, if it's Nomad, if it's Michelle Obama, I'm going to get on the biggest fucking plane I can find that's going to emit the most carbon. And I'm going to fly down to where you live. And I'm going to buy you the biggest fucking tomahawk steak that a fucking butcher can chop up.
I'd rather have a tomahawk missile, right?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't feel like going to jail.
Me neither, buddy.
Yeah, that'd be a dark web issue. I'm sure we can find one somewhere.
I'm sure it would be, yeah.
Take the steak and call it a day.
All right, buddy.
All right, let's see what AOC has to say. Maybe. Maybe she doesn't have anything to say. I just have a thing on my screen. There we go.
Thank you, Chairman Stauber. I've been going through some of the documents prepared for this hearing, and I just had a clarifying question here. Mr. Holt, on your disclosure form for the hearing, you have submitted under the question of whether you are a fiduciary of any organization or entity that has an interest in the subject matter of the hearing. You've answered no to that, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify, you are the president of the Consumer Energy Alliance. You also are the managing partner of HBW Resources, correct?
Correct.
Which is a registered lobbying firm for CEA?
Correct.
You have no fiduciary responsibility in either of those organizations?
I have a fiduciary responsibility in both those organizations. CEA is a independent organization run by a board of directors that is contracted to HBW
and
to help manage CEA.
So you do not have a fiduciary responsibility in either of those?
Wait a minute. Who are you?
Organizations?
In terms of being responsible for the organizations, yes, I do have a fiduciary duty.
So you do have a fiduciary responsibility. Now, in terms of interest in the hearing, CEA has membership of that includes the American Petroleum Institute, Chevron, Arena Energy, ExxonMobil, National Ocean Industries Association, Shell, etc.
Correct.
Would you like to correct your disclosure form?
No.
How the hell?
I'm not sure I understand the nature of the question. Consumer Energy Alliance is a 501c4 that is a membership-driven organization. It's got approximately 380 member companies that are members of CEA. All are listed on our website. All our tax forms are listed on the website. So the annual revenues of CEA are public and transparent. The board of directors for CEA runs the organization. The board of directors has hired HBW to help manage that organization.
Exactly. And HBW receives, from what I'm seeing in the IRS filing, 74% of CEA's revenue went to HBW. You are the president of CEA and you're the managing partner of HBW.
That's correct.
And CEA's revenue comes from?
The member companies.
Which includes the American Petroleum Institute.
And 380 other member companies.
Including Shell, ExxonMobil, and Occidental Petroleum.
But I would add to this, for the record here, 75% of CEA's membership does not produce a molecule of energy at all. So they are consumers representing farmers, manufacturers, small businesses, and families all over the country.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, that's enough of that.
Chris just said John Kerry racked up more sky miles in 1 week than he had as an entire life. He doesn't want to hear about electric vehicles. Good point, buddy.
Yeah, no kidding.
I got to say this. AOC is a perfect example of why you don't need a college degree to survive in life, because she's simply just so fucking retarded, okay? She graduated from Boston University. But that being said, when God was giving out brains, she thought he said trains, and she took the first one because she's just off the chart when it comes to stupidity. I mean, there's no graph to analyze where she belongs.
Yeah, pretty much. All right, fellas, we've covered about as far as we can get with the C-40 cities and New World Order and the 15-minute cities and all that kind of stuff. So I think we can probably start getting ready to close this up because we're kind of running out of time here. Now, next week, it gives us a few minutes to talk about next week. All right, next week I want to do nuclear Armageddon. Okay, I watched an exceptional video today. It's 2 hours long. It's on YouTube. It's a little bit long, but it's so good. It's Annie Jacobson. Apparently, she's a Pulitzer Award-winning author, and she's done a whole bunch of stuff like concerning Area 51 and just a whole bunch of different controversies. Well, she has written a book that pretty much explains everything you need to know about nuclear weapons. Okay, and it's really, really good. And she goes into where the safest countries are and various things like that. So that's going to be the topic for next week's show. So we really need to watch that. We'll get to that real quick too. We also have a Wednesday night show now, a Friday night show now, which is the Xeno Files. Okay, XENO Files, FILES. We're delving into the strange and unusual things that happen occurrences that happen around the world. I think this next week on Friday we're going to be doing Antarctica and vortexes and magnetic anomalies, but especially Antarctica and how that relates, the Antarctica Treaty, which is a treaty of various world governments, how that relates to what's actually being hidden under the ice in Antarctica. So, and Nomad, I think you have something to say there, buddy?
Yeah, I'll keep it long. Tonight's thing with the C-40 thing, very interesting for people who are directly affected by it. The stuff that we're doing in relation to the other topics that are coming up. The one on Friday is an interesting one. It'll be really good. Might be a suggestion maybe that the listeners might some, especially Anne and other people who are here on a regular basis, maybe they send us some ideas on what they would like us to discuss and talk about. But last and mostly, right, watch what happens in the next couple of months. It may have passed most of the public's consciousness because most of them are unconscious. But basically, the re-upping of the selective service, that's not just something that came about out of thin air. If we're starting to remind people they've got a commitment, 18 to 25 or 18 to 26, wherever it is, the selective service, something is getting ready for in the unlikely event of something happening. And all that we're talking about globally is we're going to need manpower because our military is depleted with recruitment. But when Biden lets it in, makes an order and puts people on notice that your selective service, you will be called up. That's something people should wake up and take notice of.
Yep, without a shadow of a doubt. And that all falls into what we're going to be discussing next Wednesday concerning the nuclear Armageddon. I learned a lot by watching her video today. There are some stuff in there that will quite literally make your hair stand on end. For example, Joe Biden could think he's at Denny's ordering a vanilla ice cream cone and launch thermonuclear weapons by mistake. And there's not a whole lot that can be done about it. Right. So anyway, if you really watch next week's show, it's going to be really important. For any questions for the audience out there, just email them to us at the FFN network, and we can get that out to you for suggestions. We're always looking for that kind of stuff. So what do you think, guys? Should we go ahead and wrap this up?
Yeah.
Okay, Nomad, go ahead and close. Go ahead and, buddy, you first.
All right, so thank you for the opportunity. Guys, thank you very much again for letting me have the opportunity to come in and be a nuisance. And to the audience, we appreciate your loyalty. That really is. This is really about you. We want to stimulate what you guys have and maybe discuss some things that you guys want to hear about. But most importantly, do not forget that you are an American. Be proud of it. Be proud of it. Be ready to defend this country from enemies, foreign and domestic. And that doesn't just mean physically, it also means from an ideal point of view. This country is a concept, and whether it's global warming or some other type of nonsense that people put out there, never forget who we are and what we stand for. The world once looked to us, and it's time for us to be looked up again. We need to rebuild our reputation. So don't let America slide away.
Amen, brother. Rennie?
Just want to thank my son for his kind words. Great show, gents. It's a pleasure being here tonight with Nomad and you, Chet, and Blaze Man. i12 GIA is a proud sponsor of the show, along with
Peace of Mind Training.
Peace of Mind Training. Yeah, and Global Elite. POMT slipped my mind.
Yeah, that's okay. No worry. All right.
So looking forward to next Wednesday. I won't be here Friday night. As you well know, I'm back to work. So
Okay, we'll figure something out.
Yeah.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up then. Thank you for joining us. It's been another enjoyable hour. We always love listening to your comments and hearing what's going on. And I want to thank my partner, Rennie, and my other partner, Nomad, for contributing to this evening. So as always, keep the ones that you love, hold them close and give them a big hug, and prepare to self-rescue. And that's all for tonight, folks. Thanks.
You have just watched an FFN Network production.